Gigi, welcome to Thriller.
Thank you so much.
I don't know. It feels like a bull run.
I think it does. Well, looking at the prices, I think that, to be honest, I think the bull run has been happening all year round. It just kind of was in a phase for the last 6 months where there was some price suppression. But yeah, now I think kind of the horses are out of their houses, and who knows what's going to happen. And especially now Trump winning the election. Yeah, it's an interesting time to be alive.
Dude, it's incredible. I woke up today and I saw 92K and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, seriously, like, what is going on? I'm so out of the loop. I don't even know what's going on with some of these nation states. Do you know anything? Like, what are you seeing on your side? Because you're on the other side of the world, right?
Yes, I am on the other side of the world, but I get my information from online, like most other people do, mainly on X. There's a lot of like rumors, and every day I'm reading a new tweet. Oh, I just got off the phone. You won't believe who's buying. Like that kind of seems to be the trend at the moment. But yeah, I mean, on my side, as you said, I live on the other side of the world. I live currently in Russia, and as you know, kind of Russia is the leader of BRICS, and they had recently a summit here just a few weeks ago, and they even discussed like Bitcoin was on the agenda of discussion for settling international trade. Which shows that Bitcoin's gone a long way from, countries suppressing it to now essentially, very large nation states discussing to do international settlement, essentially replacing the dollar. But more than that, kind of the mining operations, that recently we've seen Argentina, Ethiopia, Bhutan, which was kind of mining in silence for some time, have now kind of, been very public with it. And I think other countries are just going to be kind of jumping on, kind of not waiting for the moment when. It's a matter of how quickly can we get started. So yeah, going back to the opening questions, are we in the bull run? I think, I don't want to sound cliche, but I truly believe this time is different, because it's not just some retailer, group, some guys pumping their bags. Now it's become like the race to accumulate as much sats as possible. But yeah, that being said, like, of course, there's going to be bear markets. Like, the Bitcoin's still going to go in a cycle, but I think this time, what I mean by it's going to be different, we're going to go to face melting numbers that people will be like, how is that even possible? And the simple answer is scarce resource, 21 million Bitcoin, right? And how much of it's locked away, how much of it's lost forever. Yeah, I think we're on a wild ride at the moment.
Yeah, because it makes you wonder. Like, I think back to like 2013 and like even 2015, 2017, and like it was just purely retail driven, right? And then was it 21, 20, and then that felt like more was like corporation driven. And now, I mean, what is it now? Is it a mixture of BlackRock and nation states? You think, or what do you think?
So I think that the 2021 bull run, which kind of was short-lived with the FTX saga. There was a lot of talk about, institutions are here, institutional money is going to be coming in. But to be honest, I think the only real institution that was really putting, their money where their mouth is was, of course, MicroStrategy, which kind of laid out the blueprint. And I think to a large extent that the reason MicroStrategy was one of the only ones that really kind of started the race was because their CEO is their founder, right? Michael Saylor is the guy that's been running the company for decades. Loads of these other corporations, none of them really have, founders as their CEOs. It's all through, different boards and chairmen, and everybody's scared to do the wrong decision, to lose their super high paying dirty fiat job. So I think, but now, as it's been, close to 4 years, well, going over 4 years, they're suddenly starting to realize that, maybe we should add this asset to our balance sheet. And of course, as we know, next month we have the Microsoft potentially adding it. But even if they don't go through with that, I think all the companies are slowly starting to wake up and realize all this money we have in our banks is kind of melting away. We need to allocate it somewhere smarter. So that being said, the nation states, it's... At the moment, if we just take Bitcoin out of the equation, we live in such an uncertain world with, with inflation, with potential wars that have been, been propped up for decades. And gold, which has historically been the safest place to store your money. I mean, gold, if we look at the price action of gold for the last few decades, it's been positive, but it's nowhere close what Bitcoin's doing. And Bitcoin is, to some people, like they say, the digital gold. To me, it's much better than that, because gold, I can't just send to someone in Fiji on a Sunday morning, but Bitcoin, I can send it to anyone at any point in time. There's no maintenance, there's no security costs. And of course, the verifiability, right? Like, I can verify that my sats on my cold storage are really my sats, So yeah, I think there's many different factors playing into it. And now it's kind of like all this trajectory of, I think retail is still in it, but retail's kind of now not that influential as it used to be in Bitcoin. Now it's kind of the big boys, the big companies, the nations that are really kind of in a FOMO phase, like, wow, we need to stack as hard as possible.
Yeah,
That's what I'm feeling.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's safe to say that we beat retail, or not beat retail. We beat nation states, and we beat everybody else as retail. So that's wild to think.
Which is the first time with any asset class, because usually it's the big boys that get their first like pre-seed, and they buy it cheap, and then they kind of dump on retail. Not that I'm giving any financial advice. Nobody should be dumping their sats. But if you've been in the space for like a decade, then you're buying Bitcoin for like a few dollars. And here we are in 2024. We're approaching soon to smash through $100K dollars of Bitcoin. It's pretty insane. Talk about the ROI. Yeah, and to be honest, I think to me personally, anything under sub 100K is still cheap, even though it's like 100K. You're like, oh my God, it's 100K. But I am true believer that in the next few years, leading up to 2030, Bitcoin's going to be in the millions of dollars, because the more FOMO these big guys get, there's only so much Bitcoin that there is out there, right? If we look at daily mined Bitcoin, it's 450 Bitcoin at the moment, I think, in this fourth halving. And that's it. There's no more than that. And there is no, I'm going to go like do an OTC for 10,000 Bitcoin. Who's going to sell you these 10,000 Bitcoin? And going to BlackRock, kind of the company that owns most of the world, is like perma bullish on it. We see Larry Fink on CNBC, like on all these big like TV stations, just kind of saying like Bitcoin is the way to have. And excuse me, I remember back when ETFs just got approved earlier this year, they were saying kind of, a good allocations to maybe 5%. Recently, I've been reading, they're even going as high as like 60-70% allocation that they're advising to companies, which is like,
whoa,
mind-blowing,
Wow.
Like it's a big jump in only 7-8 months. But if you look at historically the ETF chart, comparing it to gold, just the other day I was showing it to a friend of mine who's trying to get into trading, and he was asking my advice. He was like, hey, like I want to start trading ETFs and stocks and everything. And I said, listen, my friend, and he's a young guy. He's like in his early 20s. I'm like, the best thing you can do today is forget all that gambling bonanza. Just start stacking sats. And on your question about ETFs, comparing Bitcoin to the gold ETF, which was kind of the most successful one, this year alone, in less than a year, there's been last time I checked, like over $26 billion that went into the Bitcoin ETF. And that's more than the first 5/6 years of gold's ETF when it launched. And this is only not even year one is done. So I think going forward, like BlackRock, everyone. I think even BlackRock has something to do with Microsoft kind of bringing this up to discussion, because they're a big shareholder of Microsoft, and BlackRock is kind of pushing everybody to buy Bitcoin. Now, the thinking behind it, though, I don't think Larry Fink and his colleagues are cypherpunks and they're doing this for liberty. They're just doing this to get those fees, right? But hey, what do I care? Like at the end of the day, they're still pushing and advertising Bitcoin for free. Bitcoin doesn't have a marketing department, right? Everything is word of mouth, and now we have huge players like BlackRock shilling it on live television for free. It's kind of, that meme, now you work for me. It feels like that.
That's amazing. That's such a great outlook. What like speaking of the whole cypherpunk thing, I was having a conversation earlier this week about you know, if these nation states and even BlackRock, they start buying more and more of this Bitcoin, aren't they kind of just, I'm using my words carefully here, aren't they kind of digging their own graves in a lot of ways? Like, do they not see where this is all headed? I mean, there is a part of me that's like thinking about that, but there's another part of me that's like, because yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that, or am I too early on
Yeah,
that
no,
type
I
of
do.
thinking?
I do. I have kind of like a two-part answer to that question,
Yeah, yeah,
Car. So the first one is, yeah, potentially. I definitely don't believe that BlackRock really understands what Bitcoin's all about and the power of it. They just see it as this other tool that's been around for 15, 16 years. It's propping up, it's bringing, thousands of people around the world to different conferences, and then Trump's mentioning it and this and that. And then kind of like, oh, let's go along with it. It seems like it's gonna be here to stay. But they have no idea that it takes the power away from, the money printer, which they are like essentially the closest guys to it, and they've been milking that money printer for decades. And the second part of the answer is, which I have a deep speculation since it launched, and especially for BlackRock, that those guys are selling some paper Bitcoin, and it's only a matter of time that it will be realized. Because to me, it's an oxymoron that Bitcoin, which is an open ledger, kind of the one main priority key feature of it is that it's verifiable. Everyone, not even running a node, you can just go onto mempool or anywhere and verify the transactions on chain. They've never released their address where they're holding all this Bitcoin. Well, we know where they're holding it. They're holding it in Coinbase, but Coinbase is also not revealing nothing. So, with the reputation of these Wall Street players, they've been paper trading so many assets since the inception of Wall Street. And I think Bitcoin is no different. They're thinking, we'll sell some paper Bitcoin and we'll buy it later. They kind of maybe look at the cycles and they're like, oh, it's going to crash at some point and we'll buy it. But if that turns out to be true, they're kind of playing a death game, because at this point, I don't think Bitcoin's going to go down to low 20s, 30s, 50s, or even where we are now, a few weeks ago at 60K. I think those numbers will be long gone. So yeah, I have a speculation that it could be a death blow, but I think we're far away from that happening anytime soon, because these guys have so much money under their control and they're so influential that, this fiat saying too big to fail, which I absolutely hate. They kind of, I think they have that cushioning of, can I swear on this podcast or no?
Yeah.
In case they fuck up, they're like, oh, well, we've got friends that, big places that can help us out. So let's see.
Yeah. Do you think so? Yeah. Let me ask you another question on that then. So do you think there's paper trading going on then?
I think so. And I think also, like, recently, if you've seen, Car, like they changed their terms and conditions, like the contract that they have with Coinbase, where they wanted like 12-hour withdrawals. That was the only thing that was said. But I think I'm not the only one in the space that, hypothetically thinks there's some paper trading going on. And usually how these institutions work, they don't really trade the physical asset like an actual trade. It's all like done on contracts. May that be contract for difference or IOUs or whatever it is. I think with Bitcoin, it's no different. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they really are buying the Bitcoin they are. On the other spectrum, maybe I do hope I am right, because if it gets revealed that BlackRock's buying paper Bitcoin, we're going to see such a big black swan event, and we can once again buy cheap sats. So either way, it can swing both ways. But if you ask me, Car, like, what do I think? Yeah, I think there's some paper Bitcoin trading. Maybe it's very small. Maybe it's not like all of it. But I definitely think, because I don't trust none of these, big Wall Street guys. And they've been doing stuff like very funny business ever since it was incepted, this industry. So I don't see why they would do anything different and do it fair with Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's why it's so important just to, get Bitcoin on a cold card or whatever it is you're going to use.
Of course,
just get it out of the hands of a custodian, like, as fast as you can.
I mean, we've been preaching this on like for like how long, how many years, get your coins off exchanges. Yet there's still people, today holding on exchanges. If we kind of just stray away for a second from ETFs, but just talking about coins on exchanges. But I think to a certain extent, the reason it's still happening is the lack of education. Because I recently had a guest on my show, What's Your Bitcoin Story, where we specific kind of problem that we have with people holding their coins in exchanges. And one thing that I brought up that I realized, and especially living in where Bitcoin, people know what Bitcoin, but it's they're not so knowledgeable about it. Most people keep their coins on exchanges because they see the exchange as a bank account. They're like, well, it's there. I can log in. I can see it. Like, it's no different to my bank account. And I'm like, whoa. No different to a bank account. Like, tomorrow you can go onto Binance.com or whatever exchange you're using, and you see a big 4004 sign saying, oh, you can't access it. What happens? There's no customer support. There's nothing. Like, it's not a bank. And I guess people they don't realize that they can hold it in their own cold storage. Even some people, like, it's crazy. I work in I'm not proud of it at the moment. Still, I work kind of in the shitcoin industry in one of the big media companies, and of course we get our salaries paid in USDT. And some of my work colleagues, I've been working in this company that everybody knows, but I'm not going to name drop here because that's besides the point. But the point I'm trying to make is they've been working with this company for years. And when I tell them to make a transaction, they're asking me, how do I, Gigi, how do I send someone USDT? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how have you been doing it for? Oh, we do P2P, and that's it. And I'm like, so you don't know that you need to go and choose what shitcoin you want to send it to, choose the gas fees, this, that, put in the address, do your confirmation. And they're like, it's that simple. And I'm like, wow, like, these are people that are working with the tech and they don't know how to do a transaction. And here I am preaching to normies, get your coins off exchanges. It's a piece of cake. Get your cold card, get this, get that. So yeah, I think education plays a big role in it, and responsibility. This is another thing I want to bring up. Bitcoin, what it teaches us is to be responsible. And to a large extent, people are not that responsible nowadays. Like, everything's done for us. You don't have to worry about anything. And Bitcoin teaches you that. And I think it's a good lesson, because if you're not careful with what you're doing, you can lose your Bitcoin forever, like it or not. That's the cold hard truth. So I think Bitcoin is making us as humanity more responsible, which I think is a must, because we've been becoming way too soft over the last decades, and at this rate, without Bitcoin, we just melt away.
Yeah, gosh, dude, there's so much more to go as far as education in the space. Yeah, let's jump into your stuff, Chichi, because like you said, you live in a different part of the world, and what's it like? What's the Bitcoin climate over there, and what's the overall perception of Trump coming into office and all those sorts of things? Like, I'm curious to see what
everybody loves it. Like,
oh,
people
really?
over here, they love Trump. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So Trump in his previous presidential term, he was in really good terms with Putin, and they seem to be like pretty good buddies. So if anything, it's more positive for reviving the relationship. And I think certainly, kind of, not to exclude the big elephant in the room, but kind of this war that's been happening for the last 2/3 years on the border. I think, the Biden administration had a huge thing playing with that. And, I think at the end of the day, it's all about, these wars are about selling arms and not caring about the people. And I think with Trump, things are going to change. I always said, once the funding from US stops to the border, this stupid war is over. And it's sad what's been happening, because, people that are uneducated, I mean, not uneducated, but don't know any past history of Russia and Ukraine, they're essentially it's one family. Like, everybody on this side has family there, everybody there has family here. It's essentially like having a war in the US between the West and the East, right? They just happen to have a different flag, but it's sad. And I think slowly people are sick of it. Even here, everyday life. I only moved to St. Petersburg some 6 months ago, but even when I moved 6 months ago, like, unless you put on the news, life is normal. Like people are still, enjoying life, doing their own thing. It's not like, oh my God, what's going to happen over there? Of course, and it's a touchy subject because everybody knows, that people are dying on both sides. But I think with Trump coming in now, hopefully that could come to an end and some resolution, some negotiation happens on that spectrum. So I think it's positive with regards to Trump going back into office.
Yeah,
not just for Bitcoin, but for humanity.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So you're saying that there's, so there was just this this administration before Trump that is just trying to just stir things up as a way to just Can you go into that a little
just
bit
to
more?
sell more guns and kind of this whole NATO playbook, like let's bring them back to the borders. And it's if you ask me, Carl, to me it's insane that we live in the year of 2024 and we're having these wars which have absolutely no meaning. At the end of the day, once again, it goes back to people that are funneling these wars, making more money. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not like there's actual real need or threat for your own country to go to these wars. It's just kind of like this proxy, and it's Ukraine, Russia is just the latest one. Like what we've been seeing in the Middle East, since the early 2000s when this whole war on terror propaganda, broke loose. My God, like Iraq was savaged. Now we're seeing what's happening in Lebanon with Israel and Gaza. I mean, just like or Africa, like with Somalia, what's been happening with Sudan, like just all these wars have been, been destroying, the prosperity of humans instead of collaborating and making something together. Just, like I have this term that I like to use. Bombing for democracy is like fucking for virginity. It doesn't make sense, right? Like you're not gonna go in. And sorry for my strong language, but truly, it's a strong thing, right? Like this whole act of we'll go bomb that country for democracy. Like natively, I'm ex-Yugoslav, right? And for those who remember, NATO bombed Belgrade through the help of US for like 78 days straight, the capital of Serbia.
Gosh.
To basically to democratize, to free the people from the regime. And since then, people are still living hard lives. There's so much cancer and everything that's been caused by bombing for democracy, which just doesn't work. So I hope as we steer closer to this Bitcoin standard, on a Bitcoin standard, wars will be unprofitable. I don't
very
believe
unprofitable.
that wars very unprofitable.
Yeah.
I'm not of thinking that wars will never happen. If we look at the history of humanity, we've always had battles and we always will. But the future battles are going to be, fought differently. It's going to be more of a negotiation and some teeth for tat instead of, let's send over some tanks or what they're doing today. Let's send a sweep of drones and just go bomb the shit out of people, which is scary that drones, especially with AI, are choosing which targets to hit. Like, wow, like how far have we gone wrong in warfare that we're sending, essentially robots to go and make decisions on who lives and who doesn't. Scary stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you touched on all that stuff. It's important to get that out there. I don't think there's nearly enough Bitcoin podcasts talking about this kind of thing. Is there? So let's talk about that, the future of war and how that looks under a Bitcoin standard. I think, I don't know, was it Svetsky? I want to say it was Svetsky that wrote a lot of the early writings on that kind of stuff. It was really fascinating things. And maybe even Francis as well too. What do you remember some of their highlights and some of their high points in regards to war as far as what it looks like? Trying to see. Let me see if I can find it.
I mean, out of the guys you mentioned, particularly, but like one good resource that I would recommend to kind of get an insight into kind of the future of warfare is definitely Jason Lowry's book Software.
That's right.
Did you get a chance?
I think it got banned.
Did you get a chance to go over it, Car?
No, I didn't. Was that what he was talking about?
Yeah. So for those that don't know, Jason Lowry, which is part of the Space Force, he wrote his thesis, which was titled Software, and he released on Amazon. And I was lucky enough; I actually have it right there on the bookshelf. I can put it out later. Which was kind of it was released publicly to purchase, and then within, I believe it was not even 2 months, it got suppressed. He even wasn't allowed to publicly speak about things on X and different platforms. And that book, it's a hefty read. It's like a 400-page thesis / book. But I mean, that book, and the amazing thing is, for those listeners that are listening and want to get their hands on software, you can find free PDF digital versions online. So you can still get access to it. You can't get a physical book, but I would highly recommend to anyone that's interested in kind of seeing how future wars will be fought, which is through bits and energy. That book is the best resource. And I haven't finished it yet. I'm close to the end, because that book is, or thesis, whatever you want to call it, it's not something you just read before bed, a few pages. You need to sit down, read one page, you pause, you're like, holy shit. I mean, it's insane. But the gist of it, what I'm getting is future wars are not going to be fought through bullets, but it's going to be through negotiations and energy at the end of the day. Because Bitcoin, why it's so special is the fact that you can, energy that you're putting out into the world, and you're storing it in digital data, and you can transfer it to anywhere in the future, and actually that stored energy is gaining value, which is insane just in the idea of it. Because energy production that we know of today, whenever a grid sends energy out to the nearby city, a lot of that energy is lost on the way. So now that we have something that we can transfer this energy instantly, not to the city next door, but to a different continent in a matter of minutes, and nothing is actually lost. In most cases, if you keep and store that energy, it increases in value. It's a concept that's very hard to get your head around. So that's my kind of take on future warfare. And I'm not a master of it, but definitely one resource that I could recommend is the software book.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I was looking this up, but it does make you question, even back in World War I, when they were using bonds, war bonds, and they were still on a gold standard, if I remember correctly. But it was still enough to undermine everything, I think.
Well, actually, on the war bonds, if I may just jump in there, as I mentioned off record, I had Oliver from GP last night on the pod, which the episode will be releasing sometime in, I believe, December. And we spoke about this, and he taught me about how the war bonds came around, because I had no idea. It was basically that the English government didn't have the money to get through taxation, and then they released these bonds. And then the central banks just, went ahead and got these bonds. And that's how we all went through kind of these war bonds was the beginning of the fiat shenanigan, which we're living in. And then kind of 1971, as we know, the famous Nixon, acts with, getting the dollar off the gold standard. That was kind of the last nail in the coffin. So, yeah, I mean, war has a big thing to play in it, but my father has a good saying. He says, no empire lasts forever. And I think this American empire that's been ruling the world for the last 100 years, since essentially the Fed got initiated, this little private institution that's been dictating how the world operates. I think slowly things are changing, and Bitcoin is kind of smashing it in big ways, as we see today. The fact that we have nation states, adopting it and mining it and storing it. And it's only been 16 years, guys. This tech hasn't been around for 60 or 100. Yeah. It's 16 years. If you compare that to a human, Bitcoin is a teenage boy or teenage girl. Wait till this child becomes an adult when they're 21 plus, as you have in the US, or 18. Yeah. And then once they get to their peak, they say, kind of humans peak out at 30. Imagine Bitcoin in 30 years when it becomes a grown man or a grown woman. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be insane. Like what we've seen so far. And it was all like just code that, got released to the world. There was no pre-mine. There was no insider trading, nothing. Everybody, with the GPU computer could have been mining 50 juicy Bitcoins every 10 minutes. But doesn't matter. We're not going to go down the rabbit hole. Oh, why didn't I?
Yeah, I think like what you said, I think just the very existence of Bitcoin existing definitely puts a check on things, especially if these nations and other states like try to like fund their war machines. They're going to get debased out, or at least gives the public an option to opt out of that extraction to a certain extent. Gosh, man, these are interesting times, man. We're living in an interesting world right now.
You wouldn't say, but I would like to now switch it. We went a little bit doomsday, gloomsday, kind of
really fast,
like,
right?
Shit. Really fast, right? Like that escalated quickly, as Ron Burgundy said. But I want to switch it a little bit to a more positive thing.
Yeah.
That today's like being a human today, or like growing up, being a young, straight out of college or about to go into college. You should be super excited about this time, because I truly believe, like in the current day, it's the best time to be alive. The reason being is you have the most flexibility and ease and access to do whatever your heart pleases. We have this supercomputer in our pockets called the smartphone, where you can search anything you want. You can connect to anyone you want. And now with the addition of Bitcoin, you can pay to anyone, transact, vice versa, send or receive, digital money instantly. And to be sitting and being gloomy about, oh, why is inflation so high? Oh, why is there a war happening? Oh, why are jobs being, destroyed? Maybe there's a reason behind it. Maybe you shouldn't strive for a 9-to-5 job. Maybe you should focus on what you really love and just be consistent with it. One thing I got, told from a young age, because I come from a trader's family, like before the term entrepreneur, it was essentially traders, right? People looking for a problem, trading between each other. And my family tree goes way back, and everybody used to be a tradesman. And then I was seeing as my dad, he did so many different businesses in his life, and I was always questioning. I was like, Dad, like, how do I know what do I want to do in life? Like, there's so many options. And he told me, which I didn't understand at the time, but he told me, son, find something you love in life, and you won't work a day you won't work a day in your life. And to me, that didn't make sense. I was like, what do you mean find something I love and I work every day, but I don't work? Like, that doesn't make sense. But now as I grew older and when I found Bitcoin, I was like, this is what I want to do every single day. And it doesn't feel like work. And Cara, I'm this close to putting in my notice and just going, full time into Bitcoin. And I think perhaps maybe like very soon in the coming weeks,
wow,
if Bitcoin really smashes through that 100K, Gigi's going full time into Bitcoin,
wow.
and I'm never looking back. And I'd like to give that hope to people. Like, focus on what you love. I'm not saying everybody needs to go into Bitcoin, but at least, if you're passionate about something, strive for it. Be consistent. Consistency is key. If it's not working out in the beginning, don't let that suppress you. With my pod, I started it last July. It's 27th of July, 2023, that I released my first Thursday episode. I've been releasing, doesn't matter if it's Christmas or it's Hanukkah or it's Easter. Every Thursday, there's an episode that comes out. And I've been really consistent with it. And I want to, turbo boost what I do. Robin Sayre style, one episode a day. That's a bit too hardcore, but there's a lot more that I want to put out content and help people understand the power of Bitcoin. So that's kind of the more positive spin on it.
Dude, congrats on that. I mean, that's a mountain to climb to get there. But I think, like you said, I think it's just the consistency and putting in the hard work. And then I think for a lot of people, it is hard for them to find something that they love doing. How did you go around to finding that?
I would say, like, a tip is instead of looking out, look deep inside. It's kind of the Buddhist philosophy, right? Instead of looking at answers outside, look inside of you and see what really gives you joy. To find that, it's It's definitely not easy, but it's also not impossible. I guess sometimes people just need to sit down and reflect and have a conversation with themselves and ask themselves, like, what does really make me happy? Most people today, if you ask them, like, what do you want to, like, what is happiness to you? And, most times they say, oh, I want to make X amount of money. But that money doesn't bring you happiness. That money gives you access to goods and services, but money doesn't bring you happiness. And essentially, what I'm about to do, I'm going to be making a lot less money, but I'll be doing something that I love. And I think in the long term, it's still going to pay off much better. And maybe if it doesn't pay off financially, it's going to pay off by impacting people's lives. And I have this other philosophy, when you enter this world, do something like before you leave, make it a little bit better. And my way of, helping make this world a better place is to kind of preach Bitcoin and open people's eyes and plant that seed and come back and water it every so often. So, that they pick it up. And my podcast, which essentially is storytelling, we don't really go into price. We don't go into politics, which we went on this one, which I think is a very important topic. But I kind of just try to steer on personal stories and how Bitcoin's really impacting people's lives and changing it for the better, because everybody relates to a good story, right? And even if we go back to the beginning of human time, like the Bible, essentially it's a story, right? Like, and it's the number one selling book last time I checked. Like, it's the best story that's been ever told. So, how do you find what you love? Focus on it. Like, focus, and you will find out. And if you can't, because maybe that sounds easier than it is, try out different things. Especially if you're young, go out and try different things. If you like acting, go try acting. If you love writing music, go write some music. If you love stand up and you have a good sense of humor, go do a little gig. Go and do. Like, my advice to people would be take actions, because just sitting back and waiting and contemplating, nothing's going to change. The only person that can change it is yourself. And the most important thing is to act in the now. Time is another construct, which we believe like we have so much time, and but we only have one time, which is right now. The past is the past. It's history. You can look back, you can't change it. And the future only depends on the actions you take right now. So if you really want to change your life and do something that you love, start working on it today. Don't do this BS New Year's resolution. From the first year, I'll be stop smoking. I'll be a better wrestler. I'll be whatever. No, forget the 1st of Jan. Let that 1st of Jan be every day. Just take action. And I think, leap of faith. I'm also doing that in the process of it myself, like leaving a steady, recently well-paying job to do my own thing. I'm doing it because I believe in myself, and I believe I could do greater things than just be, just a number in some company. And like, I have this fire in me that I just want to share this Bitcoin and this tech with everyone. And I'm suppressed on my time. And time is like the most scarce things. But I'm like an old record on my pod talking about time. But I really want to grill into people's minds, like, take care of your time. We all share the same amount of minutes every day, and we just blow them away. May that be TikToking or Netflix or, I don't know, just playing video games or whatever. I'm not saying don't do none of those things, but like, limit them. Focus majority of time on things that really mean something to you and that gives out to people, instead of being selfish and, oh, me, this kind of consumerism mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fantastic advice. Was there anything in particular that wanted you to take that leap of faith? This bull run, do you feel like everything's kind of lining up right now, or do you think you can just feel it within your bones? And or I don't want to speak for you, but like, what do you think that is?
I think this was coming for some time. This is not just like, oh, I checked the price today and it's 92 and 2K, and I'm like, you know what, I'll go do my own thing. No, this has been something that's been in me for a long time. I was also, prior to the current job, I did some of my own kind of entrepreneurial things, and nothing really worked out. Going back to my advice, try out different things. But then, the more time I spend in Bitcoin, I'm coming up to, or now already past that. My journey started in August 2017. So I'm like 7 years plus in Bitcoin now. Like, there is nothing else than Bitcoin to me. Like nothing really matters more than it. And talking about timing, why now? Going into the bull market, I think there's going to be once again so much euphoria, so much hype about it that people need guidance and people need resources to how shall I call it? Enter the space the least frictionless way, right? We spoke about in the beginning about ETFs. As much as ETFs are making the numbers go up, I really don't like ETFs because it's just a CFD, like Forex trading. You own jack shit. It's basically you buy a share. I don't even believe in the concept of shares, like all these shares on stock exchanges. You own nothing. It's mega casino. You put down your dollars for a price at $300. Tomorrow at 600, you sold. There you go. You got some money. But Bitcoin is not about trading the price. Bitcoin is taking self-sovereignty and having control over your assets and having, full, how should I say it, peace of mind that you really own what you own. So with people jumping in, like we see in other bull markets, it's all let's do CFD trading. Let's do now they have ETFs. Let's buy some shares. MicroStrategy is the hottest thing that everybody's talking about. Me personally, I have nothing against it, but I don't own any master strategy, and listeners won't like this, but I never will, because to me, master strategy still has a chief in command, and if Saylor, I don't know, changes his mind, not that he will, or Coinbase loses all of his coins, or whoever's custodying it, go look back at what happened to MicroStrategy in the .com bubble, right? In the early 2000s. It basically plummeted by 99%. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen again. Most probably won't, but there's no reassurance that it won't happen, And with Bitcoin, I know that won't happen. Like if Bitcoin fails, and I had this conversation recently with my parents, they were like, listen, Gigi, like you put ahead like everything you own to Bitcoin. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, how'd you sleep at night? And I was like, I sleep fantastic. And they're like, you're not worried that it's gonna crash? And I'm like, crash to what? I'm like, yeah, like price goes up, price goes down, but they go, they still don't understand. And I had so many conversations, but they're like, what if it fails? I was like, listen, if Bitcoin fails, then the world fails. Like to me, honestly, like Bitcoin, and I'm not the only one. And I was like, if Bitcoin fails, there's going to be much bigger problems. Then we're in big, I don't know what to do then. So, but I'm a believer that, so many companies, so many, institutions and individuals try to break Bitcoin, may that be through hard forking or whatnot, or taking over the network over the last 15, 16 years. Biggest one being the block size wars. And we won in the end, right? The minority, right? The Bitmain and all the boys, they were controlling like over 85% of the hash power, and they still lost out on the SegWit 2x. So that to me was kind of one of the last big battles to take over the network. And since we won that, and that was 2017, here we are 7 years later. I have such strong faith in Bitcoin, and I think it's arguably the most important thing. That's actually it's like a renaissance that we're having as humanity go forward. And once again, back to the timing. Why now? We're still so early. We're going back to this 16 years around. Like most of the people in the world don't own any Bitcoin. A lot of people know about Bitcoin, but how many people really have sats in cold storage? I would say 0.0001% of the world, like out of the 8 billion people.
Yeah. So
there's so much handheld stuff to be done. And that's one thing I'm going to go into myself, is not just, orange pilling, or as I like to say, orange seeding through storytelling in my pod. I want to go out and help out these people, be that, hand and corporation. May that be a small business looking to accept Bitcoin and store it on their balance sheet. May that be families looking to switch their savings. May that be a young entrepreneur looking to start their e-commerce. And suddenly, they offer their product to Bitcoiners. Wowzers, you stand out from the competition, which is super hard today, especially in e-commerce where everybody's copy pasting each other. But as we Bitcoiners know, if you're offering a service or a product for Bitcoin, you're going to have a lot of demand coming your way. And it's kind of, as Peter McCormack calls the terms, a cheat code, right? Like if you offer something for Bitcoin, you stand out of the crowd. That's not going to happen forever though, right? It's still these moments when you kind of stand out from the crowd. So there's so much to be done and so much that's required that I think my energy spent focusing on that aspect is much better spent than me focusing on fiat mines and just stacking a little bit on the side. But to kind of close my question, and I'll give it back to you, it's also like with the age-wise. So I'm in my early 30s, and I have two young daughters, which are growing super fast. And I realize how time is flying even faster every single day. And I don't want to be on this regret when I hit my 40. Well, 40s is still super young, but like 50s, 60s. And I'm like, why didn't I do that leap of faith? Like when Bitcoin's everywhere and it's changed the world forever. And I'm like, I was right there, sitting in the front seats, like watching the game. Why didn't I, put on the jersey and go play the game? Like, why was I just a spectator? Like, I don't want to be watching the change. I want to be part of the change and give my little that I can help in the space. So that kind of sums it up on why I'm looking to do my leap of faith in very soon.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. That's awesome. It sounds like you have a lot of conviction in making it happen. I know for me, it was, it definitely felt like that too. Like there was a strong, just inner drive. Right. And now, 4
the
years
gut
later,
feeling, right?
Yeah. I think I've said this before, but it kind of reminds you like you're on a cliff and you just got to jump and just jump. And then that's and everything just kind of falls into place, believe it or not, because it's being intentional about what you're trying to accomplish in the universe. And when you start saying these things out loud, they end up becoming true. And the more you say it to more people, those people end up finding you. And I think that has always been something for me, is just like start saying these things and then you will start believing them. Then the people around you will start believing them. But it's a way to let the universe know that you're set out to do these things and to bring any sort of help your way. And I've come to realize that that's the easiest way to do it. And like right now, when you're talking about these things, I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what can I do to help Gigi accomplish this task? And I think right now it's never been easier to do like a Bitcoin company or to do anything Bitcoin related. Like I remember when I first came in, there wasn't that many free things, or not free, but I mean, there wasn't that many avenues or options out there to go and like do a Bitcoin company. You really had to do it, off of your own back,
all yourself.
All yourself. And now there's just so many places like PlebLab, or, even most cities now are going to get their own hub. So you'll be able to lean on some of those people there, even if they don't have expertise in the space. But like, it's never been easier to do something in Bitcoin. It's far easier now than it was when I started. And I think a lot of what, I think it's just being intentional about what you're trying to accomplish, and then, pushing up against the glass and saying, nope, this glass shouldn't be there. I'm going to break it. And it's just doing whatever you want. I mean, I used to have this thing I used to say to the people around me, I'm like, you're a Bitcoiner, you can do whatever you want. You hold the hardest money on earth, once in a millennium technology. I mean, yeah, it's just that simple.
And just to add kind of the timing wise, like I believe where we are today, it's why it's easier to kind of do what I want to do. I don't really have to sit down and lecture. I'm not doing what Andreas Antonopoulos did 10 years ago, right? Like really breaking it down, the tech and this, that. And now kind of it's not so much orange pilling, it's showing the signal in the noise, because like everybody like sees it now, but they're like, what do I do with it? How do I get it? How do I store it? Like, how can I utilize it in my business? There's so much opportunities with dot connecting. So I'm not a technical guy. I'm not a programmer. Unfortunately, I can't contribute to the Bitcoin core, but I can contribute with dot connecting. May that be, connecting you to the right place. A lot like what you guys are doing at PlebLab, connecting you to people where you can get some fundraising. Shout out to Timestamp, which is doing great things. Or
Yeah.
I mean, mining, which is, has been for so many years this taboo industry to be in Bitcoin mining, but now it's like, oh, like actually, it's not burning our oceans, and actually, it's probably one of the most kind of maybe not right now, but in the future, if you've got a long term plan, it's going to be the most ridiculous ROI out of any venture that you're going to do, and especially if you have like natural resources like hydraulic energy. I think this is something that most people and nation states don't realize, like how much unused energy is just being wasted away through their dams, which are generating some hydro energy. Like if you install some Bitcoin ASIC machines in there, oh my god, like, and just be mining, so not buying it off exchanges but actually mining it, which you're getting like at least a 50% discount on the actual Bitcoin price that you see on charts, and you're holding it for the long term. I mean, the savings that you're doing for your country is insane. And that's a big part of what, Samson Mao, shout out to Jan 3, what they're doing, speaking to these leaders, which I think is arguably one of the most important, contributions that are happening in the space now. Because, even though Bitcoin's, a grassroots movement, these guys at the top still need to kind of get educated. They need to have that aha moment. And if those guys have aha moment, then the grassroots projects they're on a parabolic spectrum, because it's so much easier to adapt it and go forward with this. So I think, I don't want to speculate, but I think in the next 50 years, there's a high chance we will be in full Bitcoin hyperization, where you will be able to spend your sats nearly everywhere for any service. There's no need for selling. Like a lot of people talk about tax implications, like, oh, like, but if you sell here, like I tell people, like, never sell your sats unless you really have to. You should never be selling your sats, and in the future you won't have to sell them. You will just spend your sats for the things that you really need. It's just a matter of time. Like it's the low time preference, and that famous meme. I'm sure as everybody loves the memes, but the Neo and Morpheus quote when he goes, "Are you telling me that I won't have to sell my Bitcoin in the future?" It's like, that's correct, Neo. In the future, you'll buy things with your Bitcoin. So, I truly believe that's going to happen in some parts of the world. You can already live on a semi-Bitcoin standard, like some small circular economies that are happening in the emerging countries. But I think we'll see more and more of that, especially as nation states adopt it. So swinging it back to where we started.
Also, too, like I think it'll get to a certain point where people just won't accept your fiat currency. Like I know at a certain point, people would just be like, you know what? No, I'm not taking your dollars or whatever your currency is in your country. Be like, I only take Bitcoin. I think that actually will actually happen first before country adoption.
True. I think that's similar to like some countries that have like a hyper inflated local currency, like we saw in Argentina and Lebanon and everywhere, where people were actually like you would get like even a discount if you would pay things in dollars, right? Like people would just want a better currency compared to their own currency. Now Bitcoin is kind of gonna, just like smash the dollar out the way and be like, actually, I want to get sats instead of my pesos or my pounds or whatever your state currency is. The more they print, the more people will be inclined to accept harder money. But for that to really kind of have that aha moment, there's a lot of work to do for people to understand like how and why they should be accepting that form of currency.
Yeah. Gosh, man. Exciting times. Is there anything in 2025 that you think is under the radar right now, but you think is going to percolate or going to change things, or have we pretty much covered that?
I mean, from what to expect next, like I'm personally really curious what's going to happen. So first of all, in the beginning of 2025 with Mr. Trump going back to the White House, I really, first of all, I want to see.
We never talked about that. So what was your, I mean, you gave me your country's take on it, but what's your take on the whole Trump thing and the election and all that stuff? I mean, just in general, because you're seeing all crazy things,
True.
coming out of this crazy country. But like, what do you think?
Personally, I'm happy with it because
Yeah.
having 4 years of Kamala would be painful for like not even living in the US. Like just like when the little clips that I saw on X of her speak, like when she and her laugh, it's the most painful thing.
Dude,
that
Gigi, like
I've ever heard.
if Kamala would have won, I was telling everybody, if Kamala would have won, like Texas would have seceded. There's no way we would have
and
stuck
X
around.
would be put down. Even Elon said if they win, like we're done. Like and imagine that.
Texas would have just been its own country. It really would have. I'm not even joking. Like I really think it would have. I think that would have been the final straw. But luckily that didn't happen. But
thank God. So with Trump, I mean, I like the guy. I mean, he's arguably one of the greatest showmen ever and businessmen. So like, to be honest, most politicians have never run their own business, which I think is something every politician should do. Because in a sense, a nation is a mega business, right? Like there is expenses that come in, there is inflows. Like it's a big business. And if you never run a business, you're going to have a terrible... That's why we see all these countries that are going through hyperinflation and they don't know what they're doing, because these leaders are literally, they went to political studies and they just like, all they know is how to talk, but not walk the walk. And more importantly, the experience of trade. And Trump, like him or not, but he's a mega businessman. And how many things he's done for successful and non-successful business, like the Trump Airlines, but like the Trump real estate empire, like everything like that. That man's seen so much and has lived through so much that he's got way more experience than the other candidate, which was on the board. So I think it's going to be positive. And if we look at history during like Trump's time, the economy was doing much better. I wonder why, right? Because I think maybe he knows some stuff and, kind of the people that he put into places do actually know what they're doing instead of, throwing some shit at the wall and checking if it's going to stick or not. So I'm really positive on that. But going back to what I wanted to mention with Trump, I really hope he sticks to his words and day one, he frees Ross Ulbricht.
I think that's when we'll know.
That's when we'll know. Moment.
Yeah, I think that's
because if he does that, then everything else that he talked about, the Bitcoin strategic reserve, which has been like everywhere in the media, even if you go on like Bloomberg and Forbes, these days, like everybody's talking about this Bitcoin strategic reserve. If those things really start panning out, and I'm really curious to see how it's going to happen, like this plan of buying 1 million Bitcoin over the next 5 years. The other day, I was listening to Samson Mao's interview on Joe Nakamoto's channel. And Samson said he even doubts that US could even buy 1 million Bitcoin because like there's so much rush for it. Like who's gonna sell 1 million like Bitcoin? That's a huge percentage. So how is that going to be done? Is it going to be done? There's a lot of things that we're yet to see. But if you're asking me if I'm bullish on 2025, hell yeah, Car. I am perma bullish on 2025.
Yeah, it's just we deserve it though. It's been 4 years of absolute hell. It's been coming. Like it's been 4 years of absolute hell. I mean, think about it. Like COVID happened, and then after that, the wheels just came completely off. And then we don't even know who's running the country. Like honestly, I have no idea who's running the country. They say it's
definitely not Biden.
Yeah, it's definitely not Biden.
That guy doesn't know what he had for breakfast, like let alone be dictating on what the country should do.
But it was very like early on. I remember it was like 21. I was pretty clued into the fact that he didn't look like he wanted to do this anymore. He looked like, I know, honestly, like I've hung around with old people. Like he looked like he didn't want to be up there when he was giving speeches, and he looked tired. He didn't look like he was,
it's like he was forced into it.
Yes. He was like forced into it. And then from there, it was over. I'm surprised. Like I'm surprised we made it out alive. Surprised there wasn't more damage. But I think it's incredibly bullish to see what's going to happen. I think you're right. I think day one, Ross, if that doesn't happen, then we know not everything's we'll see. Hopefully that happens. Is there anything else in your area that you're seeing as far as like Bitcoin adoption taking place? do you see it? Do you feel it around you? Are people coming up to you now, or all those signs?
Hey, Kara, we.
Oh,
I'm back.
okay,
You kind of paused. Sorry about
okay.
that.
No. I asked you a question. I was like, in your area where you're from, do you see any sort of adoption signals coming from, from Russia and from that area?
So, like to my surprise, when I moved here earlier in the year, in the April time, I was expecting to see a lot more Bitcoin adoption because this economic sanctions that went into place that started a decade ago, but then the last 2 years they just like with removing the country from SWIFT and everything, kind of just like barricading, making their own economy. Um, what I came to find out, it wasn't just Bitcoin, it was crypto as a whole. Mainly stable coins was kind of like the main way that people and businesses would trade between each other. Like the next door neighbors, China is a huge trading partner of the country, and like a lot of deals, I want to say most, but like a lot of them are done in USDT instead of Bitcoin.
Interesting.
I guess to a big part was the volatility aspect, right? Like when you're like doing big contracts, we're talking like multi-million-dollar contract, it's hard to like pin it to Bitcoin because the price moves every minute, right? So USDT was kind of the right one. And yeah, people know more Bitcoin, but it wasn't like I need it, right? But now, with inflation, which I think the easiest way that I kind of get people interested on topic of Bitcoin, and Russia is no different. It also has its own inflation. And actually, for the last 12 months, it's picking up. It's not as crazy as it was in Europe where I was living before. But inflation is kicking in and people are realizing like, wow, like my money is like, worth less and less and less. I tell people, why don't you want to store your savings in a good that actually appreciates and has value, and you can transact to anyone at any point in time. If you have a family member in Florida, or if you have someone in London or Hong Kong, like you can instantly send them money instead of be figuring out how to do it, find some broker, doing some trade for some USDT, selling here or there. So there's a long way to orange build this country, and they have
Wow.
it's a country of over 170 million people. So talk about a ground to start working in it. But I'm slowly doing it. I didn't have that much time as my main resource to focus on it. But I think going forward and next year, as I'll be fully working on my own things, I want to focus on the local people and mostly like businesses as well, because I think a lot of people do own Bitcoin. They just have nowhere to spend it here. And if suddenly a barbershop accepts Bitcoin payments, or a tattoo parlor, like things that are more like appealing to younger generations, those businesses might see, an influx of, as we said, Bitcoiners coming to them, because they'll be like, oh my God, actually now I can spend my Bitcoin on something. So that will show and see what happens out of it. But on the mining front, mining's been super huge in Russia, because essentially Russia being one of the world's greatest energy producers, and ever since Nord Stream was bombed, that we're not going to speculate who did it. It's irrelevant. But like the energy, like there's so much surplus of it, and it's so cheap. Like where I'm at in St. Petersburg, like 1 kilowatt of electricity is just under 4 cents USD.
Wow.
And that's like the second largest city in Russia. But if you go like up north towards like Siberia, you can go to like 1 cent or maybe even less than a cent a kilowatt. Like it's really cheap to mine here. And there's some like really big operations. And I don't know if it's official or not, but like there is speculation that the government also has their own, mining facilities. They're just not vocal about it. But I think they certainly are, since going back to what I mentioned with the BRICS meeting here that happened a couple of weeks ago, when they were talking about, Bitcoin as using as a tool for international settlement and goods trading, it would make sense. I mean, they're not dumb. They see what's happening in the country. They're like, maybe, we should set up our own, facility and mine this universally hardest asset that the world has ever seen, instead of buying it, OTC or in exchanges. So let's see what's going to happen. There's still a lot of growth to happen here. But I think it's just a matter of time until, it's like a catalyst. One thing pops up, another one. So talk about finding a nice playground to orange pill.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an exciting few years on over here.
Yeah. Gosh, I wonder what it's going to look like. Because yeah, things could get really, really vibrant here next year. Like fast, things could move really fast. Um, yeah. Gosh, yeah, and I think you can already kind of tell it's like the price. I think the price is a good indicator of that.
What are we on now?
90, I think. 90K. Back to 90. Yeah.
Not bad. Could be worse.
Dude, there is a part of me that I took the day off yesterday. There was a part of me yesterday. I was thinking, I was like, should I go on vacation for like a month? Like, I genuinely thought that. I was like genuinely thinking, and I know I shouldn't.
I see there's a lot of people taking vacations at the moment. Like on X, I saw like they've gone out to Latin America and Thailand. Like a lot of people are now just in El Salvador this week. There's the big Adopting Bitcoin talk about.
Oh, is it this
fitting name, Adopting Bitcoin conference? Yeah, it's Friday, Saturday. And everyone's just like enjoying pina coladas on the beach and stuff. And here I am doing my 9-hour grind. And I'm like, the fuck am I doing with my life? You know, like I didn't have the thought of, should I go on vacation? I had more of a thought of, let me get out of this fiat mind and just go like full attention on Bitcoin and enjoy every single day and not deal with useless drama and in a sense wasting my time, because
that's how I was. I was you. Like I was exactly like that. Like I was in your position, 21, like the same thing. I was having the same kind of like thoughts in 2020, like, and you just finally you just do it. You know, you just have to go and do it. I mean, yeah.
And it's not easy, right? Because and especially in my case,
it's hard.
I've got like
it's hard.
I've got 4 mouths to feed. You know, I'm not solo. If I would be a solo,
it's incredibly.
I would have done it a long time ago.
I mean,
but now it's responsibilities.
Yeah, you're up against everything. Like, yeah, you're up against yourself and what your own doubts, and you're up against others, and their doubts associated with you, and then then you're just doing the climate with the whole business climate. And I think for me, like looking back now, I'm glad I did it, but looking back now, I could have picked a worse time to do it between 2020 and 24. Like that's just the worst time in history well, maybe not history, but at least maybe this century to do something. Now it's incredibly bullish to do it right now in 2025 when things are really popping off. So I think you'll have everything in front of you. I think you'll be better. I think this is the time, Gigi.
The opportunity is there. Yeah, I also recently listened to whose podcast? I can't put my finger on the name of the podcast, but the guest was speaking about like the message which really resonated with me was, right now is the best time ever to get involved with Bitcoin, right? No matter that the price is, and the price was a few weeks ago still at 60,000. It's much better getting into Bitcoin today, not 60 or even 90,000, than it was like 10 years ago when it was $100, because nobody understood it. Nobody saw what is going to happen into it. And today, like it kind of got the government approval, the fact that, like there's so much discussion happening about it. And of course the ETFs, like, having a regulated asset class, it's not just another, shit token somewhere that someone's trading on Reddit. It's, it's legitimized. And from here on, it's like the show's only getting started. And going back to Bitcoin's only 16 years old, like it's still a teenager, like things are only getting interesting now. So talk about timing. I think, like it's either now or I wait and regret it massively. And I think what I'm planning to do, I kind of touched a little bit upon it, but I don't want to go into too much detail. Like what I want to do, I think in 5 years time, 10 years time, there's going to be so many people doing it that it's just going to be hard to kind of sustain some type of living of it. And right now, kind of, I think it's the real time. It's definitely not going to be easy. It's going to be very hard, but I'm ready for that. Like I'm ready to put in every single day the hours that I can put into to really have a successful life for me, for my family, and all the people that I interact with, and help them have a better life. I think that's the best calling. That's the biggest meaning that I can do, because I want to do this something meaningful in life, and what I'm currently doing, it's far off meaningful. So, and I have full faith in me, and I'm a true believer of laws of attraction, right? Like what you put out, you receive back. And so far, what I've been doing with the podcast, I've been getting so much positivity and support and good words back. And I've only been doing one show a week. Like imagine if I could be pumping out content every day, like this time next year, like end of 2025, poof, like I'll be laughing that I took so long to make that decision to jump off the cliff, and that's what I'm working towards.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting to watch. I mean, you have a really exceptional podcast, man. It's so original. It's like it's one of those too where like looking back and I'm like, why didn't anybody think of this idea for a podcast sooner? That's always been. Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say, why didn't anybody think of that podcast sooner? Like the idea that you had for it. It's so original. I think I told you this before. I think I had an idea a long time ago, like in the 2010s, about doing like a common. I forget the name I was going to give it, but anyway, it was about talking to the common person about their life and stuff. And yours is very similar. It's just like but just for Bitcoin, it's so great. Let me ask you real quick about that. Real quick, what's the best? What's the best Bitcoin story you've heard?
That's like asking me who's my favorite child.
What's in the top 5? What are the top 5? The most memorable one where you were just like, wow, I had no idea that's incredible. Or do they all feel somewhat similar?
To be honest, like everyone has, of course, nobody has the same story. I would say like my top 3 would definitely be Eric Kaysen. Eric Kaysen had an incredible story and how his early days in Coinbase and like everything, and just like what he became today, the modern day Bitcoin philosopher. And like, I think just that conversation that I had with Eric is so passionate. He just like verbally punches. Like I love like Eric's episode. And another good one was also Ben DeWall, who's been essentially a Bitcoin OG since early 2013. And he's seen a lot of things and like taken his take. And what resonated with his story was with his child, which kind of I took a lot of dad tips, because he's got a 12-year-old daughter, Samantha, who is like a major orange pillar. She actually last year spoke at Adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador, and she was on an she spoke there, and she also spoke at last year's. So not the last year, the previous year, the June of 2023 BTC Prague. She spoke on the main stage after Michael Saylor, when people are like, what? A 12-year-old is going to go on stage? And Peter McCormack was emceeing that day. And he was kind of telling her like, oh, like, are you stressed? This, that. And she's like, no, like, I'm fine. They're like piece of cake. And she went on and she blew the crowd away. And like to do that, and just his story of like how, that man seen so much. So Ben DeWall's story was a huge inspiration to me. I mean, there's a lot of them. There's a new episode that's actually launching tomorrow, which is, I would say, also in my top 3, is Lauren Huddle, who has a very interesting, and this man's done so many things in his life, from like professional poker playing, weed growing, sales, like everything. And then like he was always looking for this thing, which in the end he realized was freedom, and Bitcoin fully changed this man's life. And this guy's even been married 5 times. Like, talk about a roller coaster story. Like that one was good. But I can't really say what's my favorite one.
Those all sound pretty great. Yeah, those all sound. But
they're exciting ones. Yeah. And there's so many yet to come, right? Like I've only recorded. So last night's episode was episode 75. I'm nearing my 100 episode soon. But I think there's a lot of Bitcoin stories to be told. And, that's another reason I want to go venture out on my own. Like I want to be recording a lot more of them. And I want to think of some like unique ways, instead of just doing one-on-ones. Like I see a lot of podcasters are doing kind of like roundtable talks. I would like to explore those as well, and spice it up, do a bunch of different things, and of course education, which I think going back, it's the number one priority that we need to do to help us get Bitcoin into more instead of institutional and nation state hands. So yeah, that's the story been so far.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm looking forward to what it is you're going to be making. Hopefully, it's like I listened to. There's a podcast called Bitcoin and by David Bennett, and he covers the news. And I love listening to that in the morning when I'm getting dressed, even if it's like for the first 20 minutes. So that's another one. But I think, man, I would love to see like a Bitcoin news show that just covers, the news every morning and catches me up. I don't know if there's anybody else doing that. I feel like David's the only one.
There's a lot of newsletters out there, like
really there's a lot ones.
And especially the no bullshit Bitcoin one. That one's probably one of my favorite ones. It recaps everything, but it's like it's a lot of stuff. Like I would like something like that in like a short content format. Would be interesting. So maybe thanks for planting the seed.
I mean, I think it would be great. I mean, like right now for me personally, like I mean, my primary job is just Pleb Lab. So the bulk of my day every day is working with the people in the lab and getting ready for events or for programs that we're going to be doing. So it's a lot of that. Like that's a lot of it, and brings the most stress. But when it comes down to like doing Recording Thriller or Stacker News Live, which I record with Keon every Friday, like those are the fun times. Like these are the fun times because it's not work. It's not, the working Pleb Lab stuff is definitely fun and all that stuff, but it's serious work, but.
And it's stressful. These shows are not stressful. They're de-stressing, if anything.
Yeah, these shows are de-stressful. Yeah, they're de-stressing me because it's just chatting about Bitcoin and hanging out and, learning about what everybody else is doing. And I get to step away for a little bit and really get a listen for a little bit instead of talking.
For sure. Well, that's what I love what I do with the show. Like to me, recording in the evening times after doing so much during the day. Some family members are like, how do you do it? Like, and when they realize I'm not even getting paid for it, they're like, are you nuts? Like, you should be sleeping, But I'm like, no, like I do it because I love it. And like, I get re-energized. Like it gives me hope. Like it tells me I'm on the right track. And yeah, there's nothing more I would love to do than doing this full time. It would be a dream come true. And the only one that can make that happen is this guy right here. Like it's just a matter of jumping off the cliff. And we've spoken about this so many times on this episode, but like it's super hard. And but once you jump, there's no turning back. It's not a bungee jump. You're not getting pulled back up. It's another journey. So
you can do it. I know you can do it. You can totally do it. I can. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. Let's do rapid fire real quick, and then we'll end it after that. But I do this rapid fire every podcast where I try to run into 3 questions. Usually I just make them up on the spot. So
let's go.
Okay, let's go with the first one. The first one is day one. Does Ross get freed or not?
Yes, I really hope he does. Because if he doesn't, then it's going to be a big question. What's all this like Bitcoin talk that's been happening? Is it just going to be Bitcoin in play, or it's going to be the real deal? That's what the show is.
Okay. Yeah, I think I saw Ross tweeting too. Like he's been tweeting that he's ready for it. So yeah, I'm not sure what actually happens in that process. I wonder if it's just like a mandate that he sends out and then they just make it happen, or is it something that
I think it's like a presidential pardon. Like I guess the president needs to sign this golden piece of paper, and that's it. And he gets out.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, so you think yes? Okay, cool. Second question is, what's a good piece of music, art, book, movie that you've seen this year that you'd like to recommend to the audience listening?
Ooh, so
I think you already did one with software earlier, but
it's software, yeah. But like this year, like I'm an avid reader. I read a lot of mainly Bitcoin literature. One book that I'm actually just finishing now, which is right here on my desk, which I would highly recommend. This book didn't come out this year. It's called the Sovereign Individual. This book was published in if I'm not mistaken, 1994. So 30 years ago. But this is, sorry, a bit later, 1997. So nearly 30-year-old book. But this book really, it's it's like a blueprint to what we're living through today. And it talks about the cyber economy and how, like how the sovereign individual will be free to do what they want to do in life. And this book is also another catalyst, which is pushing me to do what I want to do. So the sovereign individual for sure. But then there's, I can quickly go over some other really good Bitcoin books. Abundance Through Scarcity by Ioanni Appelberg. That is a fantastic book, which I really enjoyed. And actually, I had him on the podcast and we talked about his book. And this year, he released like a rehashed, it's like a little bit revised version of it. And it's, I must say, like it's one of the nicest books when you hold it in hand. Like just
what is it called? Abundance Through Scarcity?
Abundance Through Scarcity, yeah.
Oh, wow. Scarcity. Let me see if I can. Oh, interesting.
It's right here. So it's got a spaceman on it.
Oh, wow. Oh, it's a Bitcoin book.
And it's a Bitcoin book. And the beautiful, like the artwork in here. So every chapter has an art, like the artwork in here. It's special. Like, look at this. Look at this.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's amazing. And
how did you hear about that one?
So I've been following Ioanni Appelberg. He's a doctor from Sweden. And he's been an avid Bitcoiner for many years. He also has his own YouTube channel where he educates through animated videos. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I met him this summer in Prague at BTC Prague. And I was meaning to get his book. He also was kind enough to sign it. So we got a personalized 2GG with a block number as well.
Nice.
And yeah, it was a fantastic read. So yeah, the Abundance Through Scarcity definitely should be on your list for reading.
Yeah, I'm gonna add it to the. It's out of print. It looks like on Amazon. Let me see if they have paperback. Maybe they have paperback. Oh yeah, they have paperback. I guess the hardcover is out of.
Yeah, the hardcover. There's a reason for it. Like it's like one of the nicest books that you hold in your hand. It's super special. And then the second one, which I would highly recommend to everyone, is The Parallel. So the Bitcoin Social Layer by Brian the Mint, which I'm sure most guys are familiar with. He was also on the podcast, and we spoke about his book. Parallel is a fantastic book where it's not kind of a Bitcoin book of just how Bitcoin is, changing the world. It's kind of like a blueprint of how you can build your own parallel world to this one. So it's not like when Bitcoin becomes superior, it's like, how do you utilize Bitcoin today? Like, how do you essentially build your own world? And yeah, The Parallel's been a fantastic book. And Brian DeBin, he's just an awesome guy. We also had a really good. So yeah, maybe that Brian DeBin, I would also point to my top 5 podcast stories on what is your Bitcoin story.
Is he a Bitcoiner too?
Had a great chat with him.
Is he a Bitcoiner too?
Yeah. Yeah. Brian DeBin. He's working with the Orange Pill app. This is his second book. His first book is called, if I'm not mistaken, Bitcoin Evangelism. Something along the lines. I know there's Bitcoin and evangelism in it. He's an awesome guy, and apart from that, he's also a jiu-jitsu black belt. I'm fairly new to jiu-jitsu, and we actually also correlated Bitcoin to jiu-jitsu. How it's proof of work, right? Like with jiu-jitsu, to get to a black belt, you need to dedicate 10 years and be consistent with everything and keep practicing, and it humbles you, right? Like when you're choked out and you pass out, you're humbled. There's nothing else you can do. And the same thing with Bitcoin. Like when we see a bull run and it goes super high and then it goes into a bear market, you're basically choked out, right? And if you hold, and go back to your next lesson in jiu-jitsu, it just makes you stronger. And the same thing with Bitcoiners. The longer you are in the space, that term, time in the market beats timing the market, is so true. So just stack and never sell, and you're going to be a much happier person. So these are some
great recommendations. I'm gonna check out both of them.
And software, try and get a copy. I don't think you'll get a copy of software,
but maybe a PDF.
You can definitely get the PDF for sure.
I remember when he came out at the time, I definitely wasn't interested in anything he had to say. But he might have just been ahead of the curve, because I'm now a little bit more interested in talking about this stuff. I think now as the price has gone up, where it's a fascinating kind of like playing the tape out conversation. Anyways, I'll check that out too. Great recommendations. That's another thing I've noticed too. Like, I've been so checked out with what's going on with regular Bitcoiners on things. So it's cool. That's why we need the daily news show, Gigi.
Maybe to share these.
Because maybe you'll have like
Telegram groups.
Yeah, you have like the top 3 stories or whatever. And then you have culture section and meme section. Who knows? Something to think about. The final question. The final question is, what's when you think about what you want to create for the world, and you talked a lot about that in this pod. What is it that gets you up every morning to go and do that? I know you said Bitcoin, but it's is there some sort of advice you can give others that are in similar situations where they might think that they
thinking from myself, like what gives me the courage to do what I do is knowing that the time I spend on doing specifically this show at this point in time, it's going to be something that I'll leave behind, if nothing less than for my kids to listen to what Dad has gone through and what it was like in, I wouldn't call it the early days of Bitcoin, but maybe in 30 years time, it'd still be considered early days in Bitcoin, because once again, it's only 16 years, right? And now it's kind of the most exciting time in Bitcoin, and there's so much happening that there's so many like quality conversations that need to be talked about. So to me, what gets going is hearing how people's lives are being changed and what's happening in the now. Similar how you said yourself, Carl, like finding out like what are people like doing today, and not just being like in my own tunnel focusing on something. So what gives me the drive is knowing that I'll leave something behind, and may that be the podcast, may that be some other form of content I'll be rolling out, or engagement with people. I'm leaving something behind me that you never know when your life ends. And if it ends tomorrow, I want to be happy with what I left behind. And that's what drives me every day. Like, I don't want to, or God forbid, but like if I get to my 80, 90 years old, or hopefully 100, and I'm thinking like, why did I waste my time on this earth? It's all about like giving back and leaving something and having an impact on other people's lives. That's what gives me the drive. So this is why I'm so close to doing this leap of faith and really maximizing how much impact I can leave on others and leave something behind after I'm gone.
Gosh, it's beautiful, man.